So in this module, we're going to talk about qualification. How do we make sure that our client is, one, going to qualify for our benefits, two, be able to afford our benefits, and three, that it's in their best interest. So we always have our fiduciary responsibility, which is the client first, and then the company, and then us. So anytime our client applies for a program, a policy, we have to make sure that it's in their best interest. How do we do that? We have to make sure that they can qualify. So in this mod, you're going to need your AO packet because we're going to use it a lot. When we talk about quality, we are field underwriters. That starts from the moment we get our client on the phone. It doesn't matter how long we've had them in our office. Once you start that phone call, you're a field underwriter. We're finding out if they're working. We're finding out if they're going to even qualify. So we begin right at the beginning. Now, when we talk about qualification, throughout our presentation, we're picking up little bits of information that are telling us whether our client's going to qualify or not. Do they have a job? Are they bringing in any sort of income? Are they disabled? Do they have something inherently wrong with them? Maybe they have cancer and we find out. Also, what's their family situation? Are they parents with small children? How many kids do they have? This is all quality information. This is all information that we need to know to be able to write an application. Now, you're going to have a workshop that's going to teach you how to use EAP. But for today, I'm going to teach you how to make sure that your client can qualify. When we go to the AO packet, we're able to look through this packet and find all kinds of different places where we're going to learn if they can qualify or not. From the very, very beginning, we're just going to go into our table of contents and we're going to head to quality. But before we even start talking about quality, we're going to talk about trial versus standard. When we look at trial versus standard, talking again about fiduciary responsibility, we want to make sure that our client, if at all possible, is going to be covered right away. What happens if we send through a policy and it's a trial and it takes, say, a month for it to come through? But while that client is waiting for that trial to come through, they're killed in an accident. Have we done our fiduciary responsibility? Is that going to weigh on us? Probably. We're going to feel really bad when we find out that they've been killed while waiting for this policy. So as much as possible, we want to send our policies through at standard. Now, what does that actually mean though? So standard, according to our research, our client, their medical history is a low risk. They're going to be conditionally approved. Their first payment is going to come out in the next 2 to 3 business days. And you, as the agent, are actually going to get paid the very next week. A decline, though, so if your client, it go through a standard, but when the underwriters are looking at it, they say, nope, this is not going to work. We're going to decline it. It's going to hurt your quality and your client's ability to get insurance in the future. So it's always important to do your research and get it right the first time. So breaking that down just a little bit, when we talk about being conditionally approved, that means during the underwriting process, when you send something through a standard, they're conditionally approved right away. But during the underwriting process, they are conditionally approved for up to $50,000. So if they are to pass away before it is successfully completed, they're already covered for $50,000. Now, in the event that declined, then that $50,000 isn't going to actually take effect. But as long as it can successfully completes and they're killed in that time period, they will be covered for that $50,000. Now, when we talk about a trial, this is the other hand. So your client has a higher medical risk. That application, we're not going to sign off on it. We're going to send it through to the underwriters. So the application is going to go through underwriting before being approved. So there's no conditional approval. Your client is going to have to wait for that policy to come back before they're covered for anything. But there's also no premium drawn before the approval. So once it comes back, you're going to give your client a call. Hey, Mr. Client, good news. Your policy's been approved. And then you're going to take the COD and they'll be in force. You also don't get any advance until that trial successfully completes. So instead of being paid this week, you're going to have to wait for it to come back from underwriting. But at the same time, it's not going to hurt you or your client if they get declined. When we send something through as a trial, we already are bracing ourselves for a decline. We know that there's something in their medical history that may prevent them from getting a policy. Now, there's no specific time frame on a trial completion. It depends on when all factors are fulfilled. So if they have to talk to a doctor, a psychiatrist, the DMV, etc., you're dealing with a lot of moving parts. So you have to wait for all of those reports to come back, for underwriting to look at it and do their due diligence before it's going to be approved. The last step on that is your auto decline. An auto decline means that your client is uninsurable under the current circumstances. So you're going to learn in this module that a lot of conditions have a time frame. For example, cancer, after 2 years being treatment-free and cancer-free, you can actually apply and not be declined. But if you've had any treatments within those same 2 years, it's going to be an auto decline. So we can talk about that a little bit more as we go through the packet, but an auto decline means uninsurable right now. Unfortunately, Mr. Client, at this time, we're not able to move ahead with your application due to some health concerns. For now, though, I'm going to issue out your no matter what benefits and make sure to give your loved ones a call to get them protected. Build value in those no-cost benefits. Make sure they know that you're going to reach out to their family and friends. And you can always give them a call at a later time when those treatments are done or the time period's lapsed, etc. A lot of conditions will be insurable for a senior combo, but not for a super combo. So that's another time restriction. When they turn 60, maybe they're going to get their insurance, but right now they can't qualify. The last thing I want to talk about on this page is the rating. So a rating is a health adjustment. It's an adjustment made by the underwriters based on one's health. It's not something we put in place. It's not something we can guess at or tell our client, you know what, you're going to be rated and it's probably going to be this much. We don't know. A rating can be anything. It can be any amount. So we always tell our client at the end of EAP that they could be rated. That rating is going to come back once the policy is in force. You're going to get a mod and it's going to say, hey, policy's been approved, but your client has 2 options. So typically, they're going to have an option to take either the same amount of coverage for a higher premium or keep their premiums the same and take a smaller amount of coverage. That's going to be up to them. So when that mod comes through, you give your client a call, good news, we just have to make a decision. They get to decide, and then you're going to send out a signed amendment or an amendment for them to sign, and it'll be in place. Okay. Quality is the most important part of your application process. Absolutely, without a doubt. And it starts right from RIP. As soon as we get into EAP, we're qualifying. The very, very first thing that you fill out in EAP, you have their age. How old are they? Do they qualify by their age? And then you have their height and weight. Height and weight is huge. It's a very big part of qualification, and we're going to walk through that together in just a moment. When we talk about quality, we're talking about our client's ability to qualify, and we always want to write quality business. We want to write business that makes sense, that stays on the books, and is there to protect our clients for years to come. So we're going to make sure that they can qualify medically, they can afford our coverage, they understand what they're applying for, they don't have any unasked questions, and that we do everything as accurately as possible. There is never going to be a good time to lie on an application. These applications are legally binding documents. Once you sign it, if you sign a document and you sign something fraudulent, that's a pretty big crime. So we always want to make sure that we're never lying on an application, but we can also only do as much as our client tells us. So we always want to make sure that our client knows that we need to fill this out as accurately as possible. We have many, many different resources that we can pull on to be able to complete our qualification analysis. For the first part, of course, you have this packet. On Planet Altig, you have a quality landing page. You have in eApp, the field underwriting manual. And in HP Pro, you have the underwriting search bar. Not only that, if you ever have any questions about underwriting, first, consult your underwriting materials. Look through Slack. We have a channel on Slack that is all about quality, so you can post a question and we're going to answer it for you. You can ask a friend, call your upline. Believe me, as a new agent, your upline is very, very interested in your policies. They should be making themselves available to answer any questions at any time because they want to make sure that your quality is upheld. They want to make sure that your policies are going through as well. You're never going to be alone. You're not going to run into a situation that no one has been in before. So on this build chart, we have a bunch of different things to look at. Your first step here is, of course, your height and weight. So here is your height, and then the weight is this section here. You notice that there is some T's. These are ratings. We talked about the rating system. We talked about them getting a possible rating. This is how that is determined. So once somebody is out of the average weight, they're probably going to get rated. Now that rating, like I said, it could be anywhere from a couple dollars a month to double or tripling their policy. It really depends on the situation and it depends on the underwriters. We can never guess at that, but we know that they probably will get rated. At the top here, it shows us that a trial is T8 and above or T12 and above for a senior. It's also 10 pounds under the average or children over their age range. So when we look at this, we're able to determine how we're going to send this policy through. This is our first step. If I were to say that my client is 5'7" and 291 pounds, I would find the 5'7" and then I'd go across until I found the 291. But when I cross-reference this, I've got 291 and I've got the T8, right? So at that point, we know that our client is probably going to have a T8 rating. And what do we know about that T8 rating? We know that T8 for anyone but a senior is going to be a trial. So already we know that this policy is going to go through as a trial, not as a standard. It's our first step. Now we're going to look at everything just a little bit more carefully. If that same client is 5'8" or 5'7" and they are 200 pounds, 5'7", 200 pounds puts us right in the average. They're going to be a standard. Anything up to that 5'8" is going to be standard, as long as it's not 10 pounds under average. Because being under average is also a problem. It generally means that there's something else going on. All right. When we look at this, there's also additional things that we have to take into account. If we are over T12 for a super combo, so anyone under 60, if they're over T12, they're going to be an auto decline. For seniors, seniors play with different rules, so it's not the same for seniors. But for a super combo, if they're over T12, they're going to be a decline. We're going to talk about seniors in a little bit, but they definitely play by their own rules. So when we look at kids, it gives us their age, how tall they are, and how much they weigh, right? So we have babies and then we have children. You find their age, you go across to how tall they are and how much they weigh. For children, they need to fit within the guidelines. If they do not fit within those guidelines, you're going to send it through as a trial. I have seen children that are slightly underweight not get their policies at all. At all. So always, always send that through as a trial. If you have an adult who is less than 4'8" or 56 inches, you're going to take their height and match it to the oldest in the juvenile chart. So if they're 54 inches, you're going to use the 15-year-old. If they're 52 inches, you'll go to the 14-year-old. And they have to fall within these guidelines, otherwise you're going to send them through as a trial. Just like with juveniles. Always remember to check your flash sheet for multiple impairments. And you're going to see these as we go through the packet. They're going to be displayed. All right, so these are some examples of a trial that you're going to know right out the gates. If someone is T5 and they have high blood pressure or coronary artery disease, they're going to be a trial. If they're T4 and they have diabetes, they're going to be a trial. With diabetes, as soon as they hit T6, they're actually not insurable. Diabetes, T6 is uninsurable. Now, this chart goes a little bit farther, this bubble. So it also does any combination of above. So if you have high blood pressure and diabetes, you're going to be a trial. If you have diabetes and coronary artery disease, you're going to be a trial. So make sure that you're watching for multiple impairments at all times. Cash guidelines, we're never going to send something through as standard if it's over these limits, because we're dealing with fraud at that point. And as far as children, we always want to make sure that our children are not insured for more than their parents, because with children, as horrible as it is, high amounts of insurance are linked to higher amounts of juvenile death, juvenile mortality rates. So when we look at a policy and the client wants more than $500,000 of coverage, whether that be term or permanent coverage, whole life, we're going to send it through as a trial, and $100,000 for children. All right. Now, of course, these are just guidelines. Underwriting teams use more complicated factors, but these are a good guideline for you. The next step is our underwriting flash sheet. So the underwriting flash sheet is an auto decline sheet. At the top right here, we see our summary. So L is for life, A is for accident, H is for health, and D is for disability, which we have here. When there is an X, that means that they cannot get that type of insurance. So, for example, if we are to look at lung cancer, last treatment within the last 5 years, or currently smokes, or pancreatic cancer, last treatment within 5 years, then we go over to our guidelines and it says they can get accidental insurance only. So what does that mean? Accidental only. It doesn't mean accident and health, which is RA 71. It means accidental only. We can use this chart to quickly find out if somebody is going to be approved or not. Now, you are able to make judgments like this all the way back in your presentation when you're in the needs analysis. If I'm sitting with a client and I know that they have had breast cancer within the last 2 years and they've had it removed within the last 2 years, I already know that they can only get accidental. If you're sitting with a young lady who just had her breast cancer removed and you're at needs analysis, you can actually close out the conversation right then and there. You know that they're not going to be able to get insurance. So, unfortunately, Mrs. Client or Miss Client, my program is not allowing me to move forward at this time. Build value in the no cost benefits and let them know that this isn't forever. It's a 2-year window and that you are going to be reaching out to their family and friends. So this chart is fairly extensive. It's 2 full pages of underwriting flash sheet. There's different with these flash sheets. Some of the diagnosis, some of the auto declines on this list have gone through in the past as trials. So you're going to see in the next few pages in our trial sheets that sometimes it's on both the automatic decline sheet and the trial sheet. The reason for this is because it's never going to hurt to send something through as a trial. It's not going to hurt your client. It's not going to hurt you. So if your client is adamant that they want this insurance, but you know they can't qualify, you can still send it through as a trial. We have seen some auto declines go through as a trial. Before we even get into it, I want to talk about Social Security disability and service disability, which is this big blue bubble on the side. When someone has SSDI, Social Security disability, no matter what the reason, if they are under 60, they are not going to qualify for insurance. There is a small chance that someone who is medically disabled over the age of 60 will qualify, at which point we'll put them through as retired instead of disabled, and there is a possibility that they'll qualify. Now, this is completely different than service-connected disability. Service-connected disability means that you served our country as an active military person. You are now a veteran and you're on medical disability due to something that happened while you were in service. So it is a restitution program sponsored by the federal government and the Department of Veteran Affairs, so the VA, where a veteran can qualify for a monthly stipend along with additional medical care based off of injuries and disabilities associated with their time in the service. Service-connected veterans can still qualify for our life insurance benefits as long as they meet the qualifying requirements. So they still have to qualify medically. Anyone who receives VA disability can get our benefits. Now, a hint is that generally, if you're on SSDI, they're not going to give you a percentage of how disabled you are. But when you're talking to a veteran and they say, oh yeah, I'm disabled, I'm 50% disabled, that's most likely a VA disability. Anyone on Medicaid will not qualify for A71. It does not matter why they're on Medicaid, they will not qualify for A71. When you get a client who is on Medicaid due to low income, you want to be very cautious because when things get tight and they have to tighten their belts, the first thing they're going to give up is their life insurance policy. It's not something that is going to put food on their table today. It's going to be the first thing to go. So always tread lightly with Medicaid. Now we look at our automatic trial list. These are general circumstances. They don't always go through, but they can go through. So you're able to look at this list and make decisions on whether your client is going to qualify or not. So, for example, if your client is on daily narcotic medications, they're going to go through as a trial. Narcotics, opiates, always trial. If you're on a medication or a painkiller that is a narcotic or an opiate, there's probably something more substantial going on behind the scenes. So you always want to trial that. Any surgeries. So any surgeries within the last 6 months or upcoming are always going to be a trial. Anything upcoming is a risk. We can't see into the future and know that your client's going to be okay. So surgeries within the last 6 months or upcoming are always going to be a trial. All right. Now, it does go into cancers down here as well. And a lot of this is on the auto decline list. The reason that they're on both is because sometimes we do see clients at the end of their treatment. So if they're within 2 years and they're getting to maybe a year and 3/4, they might get through. So you can send something through as a trial, even though you know generally it's going to be declined. It's not going to hurt you or your client. Now, there is several pages of trial sheets. Please make sure that when you are looking at these trial sheets, you're being very thorough. You want to make sure that you are doing your client a service. A lot of the time, if your client is using 2 or more medications for one diagnosis, we're probably looking at something that is uncontrolled. So we're going to put that through as a trial every time as well. Miscellaneous is a pretty big thing. All right, it has your height and weight in here. It has if you have previously been declined. This is why it's so important. So important to be sure when you send policies through. Because if you send something through as a standard that gets declined, the next time your client applies for a program, they're going to have to go through as a trial. So previously declined, NTO'd, so that means not taken out, which means that when that trial comes back, they decided they didn't want it or they didn't pay for it or is incomplete, it's going to go through as a trial. No social security number, max coverage of 50,000. Really, really be cognizant of the rules regarding qualification. Chronic pain, organ transplants, pending diagnosis, unemployment. When you put someone through as unemployed or self-employed or retired under 60, you have to give a reason for it. So perhaps they're self-employed and they're a homemaker, or they're self-employed and they have their own business. That's perfectly okay. Just make sure that you're putting in a note. When we go down to the page after this, it's our automatic trial sheet. It has a list of medications and trial diseases and disorders that we're going to be able to make fairly quick judgments on. So if you see that their diagnosis, their disease or disorder is in this list, it's always going to go through as a trial. And the medications on this list correspond to things that are already trialed anyway. So if they're on any of these medications, they're going to be a trial. You're going to notice there's a lot of narcotics on this list and a lot of antipsychotic meds. When you're dealing with someone with depression or psychosis of any sort, if they're on 2 depression medications, that's okay. But if they're on 2 depression medications and one of them is an antipsychotic, that has to go through as a trial every time. Anytime you're on an antipsychotic, you have to put it through as a trial. Big blue note, anytime you have a medication, search it. Figure out if there's a different name for it and what that medication is used for. Because not all clients know what all their medications are used for. And then we have seniors. Seniors definitely dance to their own rules. Generally, a senior is going to be ages 60 to 80. But as you see in the first bullet here, some states, it's actually going to be lower. So Nebraska, Montana, Washington, it's actually 75. HP Pro is going to give you the correct availability. So if you're in HP Pro and it's not allowing you to give that client a program, it's probably because they're out of the age limit. A71, the same thing. So for seniors 65 plus, it's not available at all in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. So you want to make sure that you're looking at the age restrictions on the programs as well. Go to the AO products page to see what we sell and what the age restrictions are down there with the different products. A71, for example, is not even available in New Mexico. So you want to make sure that you're familiar with where our products are and what the age restrictions on them are. When working with seniors on their application is super straightforward. It's the easiest application you're ever going to do. But you always have to put the medications that the senior is taking on page 2 of the super combo in remarks. If they're taking medications, you're going to put client is prescribed this. You do not have to put what it's for. You don't have to put how much they're taking. Just client is prescribed metformin, for example. If they don't have any medications, client is not prescribed any medications. The reason that we do this is that every senior goes through a prescription health check when they get their application through our underwriting system. They're going to run their prescription medications to make sure that the client wouldn't be auto declined to begin with, and to make sure that that client is going to qualify. If that medication corresponds to something that would be a trial or a decline for seniors, they're going to get trialed or declined, whether they tell you what they have or not, or whether it's on the application or not. For seniors, you're never going to be able to give them more than $34,999 of senior graded whole life coverage. This is a hard stop. They cannot get more than that amount. So always know your limits. If they are a policy service holder, they're already a policy holder with us, the grand total of everything that they have as far as senior graded whole life cannot be more than that $34,999. As far as trial versus standard in seniors, so you see the bubble here, it says senior quality order. We're going to go from top to bottom on seniors. Seniors have their own rules. So when you're dealing with a senior, you're going to come right to the senior sheet. You're going to take it top to bottom. If a medication that the senior is on is not on the trial sheet, the trial list, you can see the most frequently declined list. If it's not on either of them, put it in the remarks section. You're probably good to go. So you have a paragraph of medications that will always be trial for seniors. And then you have your most frequently declined list at the bottom. So make sure you're looking at the different medications. You're always going to trial daily marijuana use for seniors. Height and weight ratio, if they're over T12, you're going to trial them. And any health questions marked yes on a senior combo, 9 times out of 10, the program's not going to allow you to progress through EAP if you say yes to any of those questions. But if it does, you're going to trial it. Generally, a senior's EAP, if they say yes to anything, it's going to be a decline. Once in a while, you're able to get those policies through, and they need to be trialed. For declines, it's pretty straightforward. Tobacco use at 76 plus is a non-starter. It is an auto decline. And conditions that would be declined for everyone are declined for everyone. So if your condition is on the auto decline flash sheet, your client will not go through. Most of the medications in this frequently declined sample list are because they do correspond to things that are on the auto decline sheets. All right. So as far as quality goes, that's pretty much everything as far as the packet goes. I do want to go down to AIL products, senior whole life states. So senior graded whole life is accepted everywhere except these places. At which point you're looking at senior whole life instead of senior graded. And senior whole life, you're not using the senior flash sheet. When your senior is applying for senior whole life, they're actually going to be applying just like anyone else. All right. Also, your senior graded is going to have a different effect for your client. So it's graded within the first 3 years of the policy. If they were to pass away in the first year, they're going to get 25% of the face amount that they have applied for. In year 2, so from 12 to 24 months, they're going to get 50%. From 24 to 36 months, they'll get 75%. And then after that 36 months or that third anniversary, they're going to get paid out 100% of their policy if they were to pass away. All right. I also want you to make sure that you're cognizant of all of the issue ages and their expiries as well. You can go down to A71, issue ages 18 to 74. And it's approved in all states except New Mexico. And the max issue age in Pennsylvania and New Jersey is 64. So just take a few minutes to familiarize yourself with the products that we sell as well. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about as far as quality goes is the other places and what that looks like for you, the other places that you can find the information. So your first place is, of course, HP Pro. In HP Pro, when you're actually building your programs, if you're to double click on some of the buttons, you're going to actually find that it has additional information in it. For example, double clicking on the needs analysis survey is going to bring up the underwriting manuals and the medical questionnaire. So if you click on the underwriting manuals, you're able to start typing in any condition that you want to look up. So for example, if I want to see cancer, all right, so I start typing cancer, it's going to bring up everything. Okay. You can click on it and it's going to tell you what the underwriting actions are. It's going to tell you about the diagnosis itself, and then it's going to take you through the underwriting. So for life, information needed, you're going to need to complete the cancer questionnaire, and you're also going to have to do a pathology report. So that's going to be on the backside. That'll be through their PCP. Most uterine cancers will fall into a group requiring a waiting period of 2 years, and your range of rating is usually going to be $750 to $15,000 per $1,000 worth of coverage. All right. Tumors that have metastasized are not insurable for the first 10 years. And then when you go into your A71, it's approved unless currently disabled. So it's going to take your life first, then your accident and health, and then your disability information. Notice that A71 and disability are completely different. A71 falls under health, disability under disability. So additional disability is different than A71. All right. The other thing you have access to in here is the medical questionnaire. So this is as if you were looking at EAP. You have your super combo and you have your senior combo. So you're able to actually pull these up without even going into EAP. Your next step is through EAP itself. And so if we go into the help section of EAP, we have technical assistance, we have the field underwriting manual. So if you click on that, it's going to allow you to download the field underwriting manual. Just remember that the field underwriting manual hasn't been updated since 2018. So it's not as up to date as using things like the Packet or HP Pro. It is a little bit more dated, but it's more complete as well. It also has your height and weight chart for your adult and juvenile, which we have also in the Packet and in HP Pro. But this means that when you're in EAP, you're able to look at this and say, okay, well, this is what I've got. This is what I need. You have information at your fingertips at all times. Now, your next step is actually going to be taking the quiz. The quiz is 100 questions. They're all multiple choice, and you need to get 80% or higher to pass. It is not an easy quest. The test is actually very, very difficult, and you need to use all of your resources to be able to pass it. You need to read everything very carefully and think about what you're looking at. When you come into a question that has a medication, for example, what I want you to do is I want you to Google that medication and see what the most likely use is. What is that medication normally used for? For example, if I tell you that I have fluoxetine and you look that up, it's going to tell you that I'm using it for most likely depression. If I tell you that I'm using insulin, you know that it's for diabetes. So when you encounter those questions, I want you to look up what that medication is and what it's used for, and use the most common diagnosis. A lot of medications are used for multiple diagnoses. The most common one is going to be the one that I'm going to be looking for. Also, unless otherwise stated, all of the questions are concerning life insurance, not accidental, but life insurance. So if I'm asking you a question and it's asking if it's declined, you're looking at life insurance. Even if you can get accidental, we're looking specifically at life insurance. So that's your quest. That's your next state of business, is to get through that test. If you do not score 80%, there's a second test, and you're just going to keep taking them until you get there. So put in the time, put in the effort, look up everything and read very carefully. All right, once you're finished this, we'll talk again.